Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today it is part 2 of my Overwatch League 2021 post-Summer Showdown power rankings. If you didn't see part 1, you can check it in the link in the description as well as in the cards and at the end of this video. But with that, let's jump in and let's dive into the top 10 teams I have in my power rankings. As always, these are my thoughts and my opinions, so you may not agree with them, but that's fine. We are here for discussion and to kind of see where things go. So, as always, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and if you enjoyed this video, consider liking and subscribing for more like it. But let's dive in, and let's look at my top 10 teams at this point, 3/4 of the way through the 2021 Overwatch League season. At number 10, I have the Paris Eternal. This team is just getting better and better and better as the season progresses. They've had very good games against some of the teams that you would put ahead of them. Teams like the Justice, the Gladiators, the Shock even. Yeah, they have not been able to find that sustained tournament success. They have one appearance in the Summer Showdown qualifiers where they lost 3-2 to the Washington Justice, but they've looked a lot better as the season has progressed. Dridro and Vestola joining this team have had a huge bump to this team, in my opinion. They've made this team look a lot better. The team has just been overall a stronger team. And so for me, I look at this Eternal team. They're one of my favorite teams to watch. I think they're incredibly entertaining. They're incredibly fun to watch. They have a very good style and a very good just overall vibe about them, I guess. And I really like this team. I think they have what it takes to kind of compete among some of these top-level teams. We've seen them beat elite-level competition and consistently compete pretty well against some of this elite-level competition. I think it's time to put some respect on the Paris Eternal, so I have them here at number 10. Coming in at number 9, I have the Washington Justice. I really want to put this Justice team higher. I'm a big fan of this team, what we've seen out of them, but we just have not seen them get over the hump and find that tournament appearance, find that really good, consistent success against top-level teams. They had a close series against the Shock that they lost, a close series against the Fuel that they lost in the Summer Showdown knockouts. They had that close series against the Gladiators that they won. They have looked pretty good, but they just haven't been able to get quite over the hump. It's a very close group, I think, at the top of the Western region. You know, your Gladiators, your Outlaws, your Justices, your Shocks, your Eternals. You kind of have these 5 teams that are all kind of fighting with each other quite a bit. They're all very close together, and there's kind of slight edges. The Justice, to me, the thing that I kind of take off from them is just that they've been a little inconsistent. They had a great May Melee. They were down in the June Joust. They have bounced back for their Summer Showdown appearance, but I just need to see a little bit more out of them before I'm ready to put them up with some of the other top-level competition, but I have been impressed with them so far this season, and so despite some of their shortcomings, I do have them as the 9th best team in the Overwatch League. Coming in at number 8, I got another Western region team. It is the San Francisco Shock. Yes, I have the Shock here at 8 and no higher. To me, they have not been able to kind of capture some of those really high-level performances we've seen out of them in some of the points of this season, especially earlier in the season. They looked very good in the May Melee and the June Joust. Summer Showdown, they missed the knockouts. They had a loss to the Gladiators and a loss to the Outlaws. They certainly look to be one of the best teams in the Western region, but they're just not quite there among the best of the best in the Western region. They have a win over the Dallas Fuel in the regular season, but you know, when the games have kind of mattered most, the Shock have kind of fallen flat, and especially recently, obviously, the games against the Gladiators and the Outlaws. Those are 2 losses that are pretty bad with where they were in the season. But the Shock are still incredibly talented. They have to reintegrate Once into this roster. They're very, very new roster. A lot of these pieces haven't played together in the past, so they have the talent. We just haven't quite seen them gel the same way they have in seasons past, but I still think this is an incredibly strong roster, an incredibly talented roster, and so I'm excited to see what they do going forward, and I'm interested to see if this Shock roster has what it takes to make another Grand Finals run, potentially. They haven't really been at that level so far this season, but maybe they'll get it all together where it matters most. At number 7, I have the Houston Outlaws. I have been very impressed by this Outlaws team for most of the season. They've done better than I expected them to throughout the season. They did not look as strong in the Summer Showdown, finishing 2-2 with a -1 differential, with losses to the Uprising and the Dallas Fuel that were both pretty bad. However, I think the Outlaws have still looked better than the Shock so far this season. They've looked more consistently better. They have 2 wins over the Shock, and their most recent win over the Shock was not nearly as close as their first win over the Shock was. Outlaws have been pretty dominant against the Shock so far this season. It's been pretty one-sided when they've played, and so I think that you have to give the edge to the Outlaws. They've just looked better. I think that in a head-to-head matchup, the Outlaws should be favored for the remainder of this season, and that to me was kind of the thing that put them over the edge. Both teams are struggling. They believe they have the same record so far this season, but to me, it's really just the Outlaws' kind of continued and sustained success against the Shock that for me is just enough to push them over the Shock and put them here in the 7 spot. I think they still look good, and I think they should still be a very, very, very heavily favored playoff team. They have a tough schedule coming up, and it'll be interesting to see what they do and if they can lock up a top 3 spot automatically. There'll be some challenges ahead of them, but they are a team I'm interested in watching going forward. And despite their recent struggles, they're not a team that I'm going to drop too heavily in the overall rankings. Coming in at number 6, the trend of Western teams continues. I have the LA Gladiators. Gladiators looked very good. Very close to beating the Atlanta Reign. Probably should have beaten the Atlanta Reign and locked up their trip to Hawaii. Things didn't happen that way, and they end up, once again, missing out on a tournament. But I think the Gladiators have looked good recently. They've looked consistently pretty strong. They've had good performances against the Shock and the Reign. Even if they didn't win those games, they've been at least close. Obviously, they beat the Shock, and they were close with the Reign. And even when they lost to Justice, it was a close series. I do have concerns about the Gladiators that they are losing some of these games to teams that are kind of close to where they are, that they don't have the strength to kind of get over the hump and really kind of get that big win against some of these teams. But I think the Gladiators have shown a lot of really good, they've shown a strong mentality that a lot of teams I have not really seen from. And I think that they've looked a lot better than the other competition around them. And I feel better about them right now than I do the Outlaws, the Shock, and even the Justice. Justice to me are kind of the dark horse team. They could be higher than they are, but just to kind of be safe, I have them where they are. But the Gladiators are a team that I think have shown me that they have the type of strong mental to kind of get through moments like this and to kind of get over things where they may or may not kind of slip and fall. And I think that they right now just look like one of the strongest teams in the Western region. I think they look like the 3rd best Western region team right now. So for me, kind of a no-brainer. We have the Gladiators here at 6. At number 5, the trend of Western teams is finally broken, where I have the Seoul Dynasty. A big reason why I have the Dynasty here ahead of the Gladiators, the Outlaws, and these other Western region teams is just that I genuinely think that one of the issues that the Western region teams are going to face is they're going to have to kind of cannibalize each other, right? They are going to keep fighting with each other tooth and nail, incredibly close matches, incredibly close ratings, incredibly close series for the rest of the season. The Seoul Dynasty really are only competing with the Chengdu Hunters and the Shanghai Dragons. And for the most part, the Seoul Dynasty are finding success against the Chengdu Hunters. It's just that these knockout games that they've been struggling against them. And they've been struggling against Shanghai all season, yeah, but that's pretty common. That's pretty normal. A lot of the teams have kind of been shown to struggle against Shanghai this season. I had some issues with the way Seoul played this past weekend, where I think they should have played more meta compositions, which I think would have looked a lot better. But even when playing off meta against one of the best teams at the meta, they still pushed them to 5 maps. They still looked very strong. And I think that the Seoul Dynasty have really kind of done everything they can in the regular season. They've been super consistent. They haven't quite had that same post-season tournament success, but neither have teams like the Gladiators or the Outlaws or the Shock or the Justice. But the Dynasty to me have been more consistent. And I think if they were to match up with a team like, the Gladiators, the Outlaws, the fact that the Dynasty have been playing against these really strong ball compositions, which look to be the future for the rest of the season. I would feel better about the Dynasty. So for me, Dynasty here in the 5 spot. Coming in at number 4, I have the Atlanta Reign. 2 straight tournament appearances for them, of course, the June Joust and the Summer Showdown. They've looked much improved throughout the season. 2 performances against the Dallas Fuel in the past month or so, and they were able to put up close performances in both of those, a 3-2 finish on the 4th of July and a 3-2 finish in the Summer Showdown itself. So we know they're able to compete with the team that we all consider the best in the Western region, and they can do so pretty consistently. I think one of their issues is potential flexibility. That has always been the problem with this team. How flexible is this tank line? And now kind of how flexible is Iris? I'm a big fan of Iris. I really like his play style. I like him as a player, but he hasn't really looked good outside of the Baptiste. So I think their success ultimately comes down to how much success they can find if they get forced off of their comfort roles. We haven't seen them find much success against the Wrecking Ball compositions, which is kind of what I expect to see a lot of going forward. So only time will kind of tell what happens at this point in time. But I'm interested and I'm intrigued to see what this Atlanta Reign team is able to do. But I still think they're a strong team. I think they are contenders for one of the best teams in the league right now. And so I have them here at number 4. At number 3, I have a team dropping it a bit. It is the Dallas Fuel. Yes, they have been one of the most successful teams in the regular season, and in the Western region, they didn't have the best record for a while, but with the recent struggles of the Outlaws and the Shock, the Fuel have jumped into the best record, or at least tied for the best record in the Western region, along with their 6 extra points that they've gotten from success in tournaments. The issue is they have gotten kind of worse as the season has progressed, and I think one of the things we're noticing is one of the issues that people had with this roster at the beginning of the season, or a potential issue people saw, was a kind of lack of flexibility at the main tank role. As strong as Fearless is on the Winston and on the Reinhardt, his Orisa and his Wrecking Ball are not really anything to write home about. And when the meta went away from the Winston and the Reinhardt, the Dallas Fuel struggled a lot. And we've seen them kind of need that more flexible tank player. And maybe Fearless is able to pick up the ball, and this team looks really good going forward. But with the way that the Wrecking Ball meta looks to be kind of cementing itself as the top meta right now, I find it really hard the Dallas Fuel are going to be able to kind of quickly turn it around and be able to be a really strong Wrecking Ball team. I think also the fact that Pine isn't with this roster is really still kind of hurting them. And I think they definitely need that hit scan player because they still do not look to be quite where you hoped they would be at this point in the season without one. But they're still strong. They still look like they are definitely the best team in the Western region. Just a couple of issues with the way their meta picks are. But in the Western region, it doesn't really matter because they can just beat anybody in the region playing whatever they want. So I have them here at 3. Number 2, I have one big rise up in the standings. I have the Chengdu Hunters. Really, the only reason I have Chengdu here is because I believe that the Wrecking Ball compositions are going to be meta for the foreseeable future. It seems pretty obvious that that is what people want to be running, especially in the APAC region. And they are the ones who are certainly making it look the best of all the teams so far. It's really a 2-horse race when it comes to the Wrecking Ball compositions. It's the Chengdu Hunters, it's the Shanghai Dragons. We saw Chengdu succeed against the Dallas Fuel in the Summer Showdown. They found some success against Shanghai, though it wasn't, they weren't able to convert it to wins in terms of series wins. But I've honestly been impressed with the Chengdu Hunters so far this season. They looked a lot better than I expected them to this season. I thought they'd be improved. I didn't think they would look this good. Leave has looked like easily an MVP candidate. I think Monk has had a great season. I think Gaga has been a very good part of this team. And I actually think the promotion of Late Young to the starting role following Elsa's retirement has been very good for this team as well. So I'm very happy to see what this team has done. I think they have definitely proven themselves to be an elite level Wrecking Ball team as well as just an elite level team in general. And so I'm interested to see what this team does going forward. and they are one of the teams I have my eyes on going into the Countdown Cup as one of the favorites potentially to win it all. Finally, at number 1, no surprise to anybody, it is the Shanghai Dragons. They are the best team in the Overwatch League. 2 straight tournament wins. Pretty dominant performance in the most recent tournament. Not really dropping much at all. They've just looked too good and too strong. They are a team that has mastered Wrecking Ball compositions. They can play the Reinhardt, they can play the Winston, they can play the Orisa. They can play anything. They're super flexible. Lip is on a tear. Izyaki's on a tear. Lijigan's on a tear. Void's on a tear. Fletta's on a tear. Fate's on a tear. This whole team's incredible. And I don't really see anybody stopping them anytime soon. The meta still seems to favor them going forward. And so I think that they are still the best team in the Overwatch League. This is technically the first time I've had them at number 1 in a power rankings, but I've been saying for a few weeks now that they're the best team in the league. That hasn't changed. Shanghai Dragons here at number 1. So that is it. Those are my full power rankings for the 2021 Overwatch League season following the Summer Showdown. Let me throw up the rankings real quickly so you can take a look at them. Full 1 to 20 rankings. But that is all from me for today. As I said at the beginning of this video, comment down below if you have any thoughts on it. Agree, disagree, whatever. I'd love to hear from you, as well as consider liking and subscribing if you enjoyed this video and want more like it in the future. But that is all from me. Hope you're all staying safe and staying healthy. And until next time, bye-bye.